Welcome, guys, to another episode of Why on Earth. Good morning, Liam, Grand Rising brother. We also have our brother Mike Mitch here joining us today for a little interview on just some social, political, human life, not issues, but things that are just going on in our lives. And Mike, Grand Rising.
Thank you. Thank you. Grand Rising to you. Good morning. I love that. Now tell me, kick it off in a weird way. I mean, I know I'm not supposed to be asking the questions here, but you say Grand Rising, like I've noticed that you guys, and you say that, like, why do you say that opposed to like good morning?
Because we're not mourning the day.
Yeah. A few years ago, I heard, I was like, I forget where I heard this actually, but the word mourning, I was like, I'm not in mourning, and I don't feel good about mourning, I guess I do when I do, but no, every day is like I'm rising and it's great, it's grand. So that's why I choose, and I know Liam chooses to say that often.
Right.
Yeah, it's a switch in thinking. Instead, so like the first words out of my mouth are not "I'm mourning" or "Good morning." It's we're rising up.
It's grand rising.
Yeah. So it's everything. It's you set an alarm. Your alarm goes off. It's like, why do you want to wake up like that? And like, no, don't set an alarm. Like, first off, get your circadian rhythm right so that you just wake up. But if that's not going to happen for you, call your alarm something else. Call it your, I don't know. I don't call it anything because I wake up. So it's just a little tweaks, in our language that I think can really help elevate our futures, our now, actually.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And we tend to do that with language as well. Like, for example, social distancing. There's nothing social about us distancing. We call it quarantine, but what quarantine is what you quarantine the sick. You don't quarantine the healthy as well. So we kind of manipulate language, and it becomes a normality, and we don't think about it, and we just say it. But I think that it does have whether it's a subconscious or unconscious effect on our thought process.
Absolutely, I agree. Language is very powerful.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mike, Liam does not know who you are. Our viewers don't know who you are. So if you would please just give us a little bit about you, your background, whatever is most important to you in this moment. Just go ahead and share
that. My name is Michael Glenn Mitchell. I like to say that I was born in the church, although I was not. My mother did not give birth to me in the church. My parents met at church. I grew up in Vallejo, California, which is actually, according to a few websites, the most diverse city in the United States, with approximately 20% Black, 20% white, 20% Asian, 20% Latino, and 20% other. So I grew up in a very diverse place. Vallejo, California, San Francisco Bay Area. I found myself to get fired up. Like, I don't know what it is. I recently found a term, it's called a blood buzz. Have you heard of the term blood buzz? No. You get this feeling when you're around friends and close family. It's like this electricity, like you feel, you know what I mean? And like, I even get it when I'm like talking to you guys right now. It's like a little bit of just a buzz in your system, and so
flutter.
What's that?
Like a flutter almost.
Like it's a flutter. Yeah. I don't know what it is, but something about like life and growing up's given me this flutter, this spark, this joy, this gift, And I mean, I say that to say, I don't say that proudly, you know what I mean? Like, not everybody has a gift to see the life in to see life in different ways than most. Like you were saying about the shift that you call good morning, grand rising now. It's because you've had this flutter, this understanding of life, this excitement, like, oh my God. And this realization, this awareness, right? Anyways, this probably isn't the best introduction I've ever given to myself, but I went to private school growing up. I then went to high school, city over called Benicia. And then I went to, I was going to plan on going to the Air Force right out of high school because I didn't want to go to college. I already knew that, like, you know, just like a debt and like, wow. So I planned to not go to college and go to the Air Force, but I got disqualified from the Air Force. So I ended up getting a scholarship to go to college. So then I moved down to LA, Orange County, to go to college, which is where I met Marquise. And so, yeah, the rest is kind of history from there. My life's kind of was really transformed through my college experience, I would say. And I'll just kick it off from kind of what we had talked about then. Well, I went to a prestigiously Christian college. And, you know, I grew up very religious. And so, you know, I wanted to go to a Christian college because I felt like that was, you know, a good thing to do and a good way to, you know, stay strong in the faith, you know. But I got there and I questioned everything. You know, I questioned every fundamental belief, every preconceived notion, all of that. And it led me on a reckless pursuit of truth. And so I kept on seeking and kept on searching, kept on digging deeper. And I feel like that's kind of what I feel like my life's about. Like, it's that being aware of my surroundings. I'm hyper vigilant. I'm observant. I'm seeking to find the truth at all times, looking in all ways. And like Liam, you said earlier, I might not be right. You know, in the conversation we had, I might not be right. Like, and I'm not saying I'm always right. I'm saying this is my perception. I trust my perception. I trust my perspective, you know, because I found there to be something divine about that. You know, religion always taught me that the world is external, like God is out there, like pray up in the sky, God is up in the sky. You know what I mean? That, yeah, the Holy Spirit's within you, but God is out there. But no, like God is within us, you know? So it's like, you know, we must seek within, you know, to, as I like to say, align with the divine within. Anyways, I'm a musician. I singer-songwriter and a seeker of truth.
I love that. And I love what you said. I just got to point it out. You said reckless pursuit of truth. Yeah. And I resonate with that so much. Yeah. In this almost the same way as you, growing up in the church. My parents met in the church. Yeah. I got baptized in the church and I grew up that way. And then it's like you question at a certain point, you question everything because you're just told one way of thinking.
Right.
You're told that that's true. That's right. But then you're like, you got this like this pulling feeling elsewhere. And then you start questioning. And then it's almost reckless because you're just seeking truth. You're seeking truth everywhere. And right. So whether that's false history or real history, whether that's other religions or other gods or other idols, you're looking for it everywhere. Yeah. At a certain point, it's like you take a step back and you almost come back. I mean, for me, I came back to my roots a little bit because I want to say comfortable, but it's almost it all kind of amasses to the within. And then you start to realize the different points in each thing and how they're all relevant and how they all they're all kind of the same as well. All religions, senses of spirituality.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
But I love that. Did you? I was gonna say, I want to know more about your music. How did you get into music? Was that a part of your spiritual experience, or was it just you just picked up a guitar at one point, or what? I want to hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, as a kid, I always wanted to play guitar. You know, as a kid, also to bring it back to that spiritual essence, I remember flying. I remember my first day of kindergarten. The first thing I asked the other kid was, "Have you flown before?" I swear, because I had been waiting. I've been wanting to ask some other kid this because I had kept on thinking in my head, like remembering flying. And so I was like, I gotta ask some kid when I get there, you know what I mean? Like, and he was like, yeah, dude, I've flown too. And I'm like, yes, this kid flew. And like, we were asking other kids, they're all like, no, we don't fly. I'd never flown before. I'm like, but I found one other kid who flew. Anyway, because I believe that may be a memory from a past life or from my spirit soaring before I came into the earth, or I have no idea what it was, right? But which is kind of an unexplained experience. And so I've had a lot of these growing up in church, especially with like through worship and through music. You know, you get in this like trance state, and like especially with dancing, like I like growing up in the church, I would spirit dance. You know what I mean? Like I went to a gospel church and they went nuts. Like I'm talking like an hour. Oh, sweating. I'm talking an hour solid of just like, I'm talking like, you know, you see those videos of those people in the churches like jumping up and down and like drums and all that. I'm talking like all of that. You know what I'm saying? Like we're super into that. So, you know, I grew up with that. And I remember like, actually just thinking about this the other day. I had this experience with a guy. His name was David Duell. He actually passed away in the past few years. He had this like spirit gun. He would like shoot people with like the spirit. You know what I mean? And like, I was in this conference, like 2 or 3 days long conference, but I was in the back, way in the back. Nobody could see me. I was doing my worshiping thing. I was waving these flags and doing all this stuff. That's when I was like 12 or 13. And I remember hitting this frequency, like singing and hitting this like high pitched frequency. And I just zoomed. I swear I like almost what now I would say astral projected. I zoomed out into the spirit realm and I caught a glimpse of heaven. I just saw my spirit rise. I was like this 10, 15 foot being, you know, and I was just like using sound. Like I remember like being able to manipulate sound with my hands even, you know, and so I think that's part of like where like music has its power is like it comes from your hands. And like, you know, anything about energy healing and Reiki and all that stuff, right? The energy, the power is in your hands, right? Like Dragon Ball Z, you know, you got like this power orb in your hand. So I always like knew there was something really powerful about music. And then as I got older, I started like singing more, liking to sing, and then wanting to play instruments. And so I played in my church's worship band when I was like a senior in high school, started playing the guitar a little bit. I didn't start taking it seriously till like 2 or 3 years ago. And it wasn't until 3 months ago that I realized I have a gift for melody. I can write melody. And I never realized that. But you know, it's like kind of like that uncovering, right? Like you realize, oh, I love music. I'm passionate about music. You realize, oh, I can write poetry and I can do this. So it's just a matter of putting all the pieces together. Oh, I love dance, right? And it's just like this thing that like, it's one thing to be good at something. It's another thing to be passionate about something. But when you're good at the thing you're passionate about, that's when like the stars have aligned, right? And it's actually the song I'm going to put out today on my Instagram. The pre-chorus is, I got to work hard if I want to get better. And I know I do my best, flying high flow like that feather. As I pick it off the ground and I fan my stage around, I just do the best in town playing on these streets around. It's like, this is what it's been for me. It's about getting better. It's about growing. It's about, you know, tuning into my spirituality. It's about learning to dance and shake off the dust. It's about, you know, tuning in with the creator within, right? Like God is this, it's like pure creative energy. So to me, like music is just where I find all of that pure, creative, energetic, blissful, yet it's a vessel that can hold anything. You know what I mean? It's like, I can talk about anything. I can tell any story. You know what I mean? Like, so that's how I got into music. And then I just keep it rolling. It's work, you know, writing, you know, all of that, practicing, but it's the most fulfilling and most enjoying, you know, work I enjoy the most, really.
What's the name of the song you're dropping today?
Better Now.
Better Now.
Better Now.
And you mentioned you grew up in what is a very diverse, you know, city, Vallejo.
Vallejo, yeah.
You went down to college in Orange County, just constantly seeking truth, constantly. And I'm curious, on your path, what has been, well, I'll say this as well. We asked you on here because aside from just loving to talk with you, we saw a video on your Instagram you posted about the things that you don't agree with as far as Black Lives Matters, and things that you do agree with, and then sort of offering another solution.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what, based on your experience as a Black man, mixed race man, but a Black man as well.
Yeah.
What, how's that experience been for you? What has been your Black experience? And I ask it that way because some people think we almost have to validate our Black. I got that way because that seems to be the best way to get at that question. What has been your Black experience?
Yeah. It's a good question. Well, I mean, for me, it's been very different. Like my dad is from Arkansas. My dad is Black. My dad's from the South. My dad's from Arkansas. Like he grew up on a farm in like rural Arkansas. And so my mom is white. My mom is from Santa Cruz Mountains. And so I feel like for me growing up, because I grew up with a different set of like values and a different like, and they split up, but like still very old school, very traditional, very conservative. And like, you know, I felt like growing up, Black for me was challenging because I was different. Like, you know what I mean? Like I wore cowboy boots and like, you know, I like trucks and guns and like, well, of course, you know, but you know, and I liked to hike and I liked camping and I liked all these things because of like my growing up. But like you said, like a lot of times we have to like validate our Blackness, and I was never Black enough to be Black by a lot of people's Black standards. Now, the thing is, there's all these standards, but like who makes standards? And I remember like someone in college telling me like the thing about Black is there is no definition of Black. Like there is like a mainstream Black culture, but like I remember this, my friend on the basketball team, Breland Kelly, really good dude. He was telling me that, like he was explaining to me like, yo, you don't have to like worry about not being Black enough. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're good. Like you are like the blackest Black you can be. Like you are you, and that is the true essence of being like a Black man. Like, you know, like, and I think beyond that is like, I am not my skin. I am not my brain. I am not my race. I am not my ethnicity. Like, I am a divine being, right? So like we talk about like the Black Lives Matter thing and all that, right? Observing how things have went, you know, I just started looking at it like, in college, I learned America is institutionally racist, right? That's what I learned in my college. And I remember getting super fired up about all this, getting on this train, like starting to hop into that ideological car and just start driving it, you know? And I'm like, well, I have to do something. I actually plan to show you this just so that, let me grab this real quick. So I could have proof that of what I was into. This is an event I held. It says a conversation about social justice, on racial justice. And I held this event, like I put it on. I was like, we have to do something about this. I held a privilege walk at my school. And it was crazy, like, what happened? People feeling so divided. Everyone starts out connected, equal, right? Equal. Everyone has their hands together, and then you ask a series of questions, and everyone spreads out. Everyone gets spread out. Like a lot of times, there's a lot of white people in the front, there's a lot of Black people in the back, right? That's kind of how it happens. Because the questions you ask has to do with privilege. That's not always the case. Sometimes there is a white person in the back. Sometimes there is a Black person up at the front, right? And so I was like, man, like, going through leading this discussion afterwards was the most challenging part because, you know, like you're asking me those questions. How do you feel? How did your story line up with this? How did you know? And so I wanted to make sure I did something very important at the end, was like, hey, look, we just talked about all the ways in which we are so different. But that was the most important thing, right? all the ways that we struggled in life. And I feel like for me, growing up Black and having this experience, like you see the struggles in the Black community. You see, like, to me, it's like we've seen a lot of, because the way Black culture is, we've seen like the amazing things, the richness of Black culture right now, the richness of Black culture, of hip hop culture, the trueness of hip hop culture, the richness of Southern hospitality, the richness of gospel music, right? Like a lot of these things that the Black people have fought so hard to and put so much of their heart and soul into, is the backlash of all of that pain, is the backside of all that pain and all those things that we went through. And part of my life and my journey as a Black man has been finding, actually, on a fast once, I had a touch with my ancestral trauma. Like, my dad beat me with a belt growing up. Like, I got whipped, hit hard with the belt, lashes on my butt, on my backside. Over 20 times I got hit sometimes, right? So I'm like, I've felt this pain. Like, I've felt the pain of abuse, of neglect. And I'm not saying that's all, like, that's a Black issue. Like, no, like, white kids get beat too. But I'm saying, like this goes deeper into, like, our ancestral, like, roots. Like, I've seen and know that some of my ancestors were slaves, right? So there is a lot there, and there is a lot of healing that needs to take place. And there are still things in our society that need to improve. And so that's where, like, this Black Lives Matter rises up, right? They're like, hey, like, all these Black people have all these disparities. We have all this stuff going on. But the thing is, when you hop on that train, it's not just that Black people have disparities, it's that all of a sudden feminism rises up, bubbles up to the top of the pot. And for me, feminism is not what the Black community needs to get their power back. What we need is, we need fathers in our homes, right? We need male models. We need mothers that aren't aborting their children. Like, we don't need a more liberal, be free, creative, open-minded, open thinking. Like, we're creative enough as it is. Like, we need to return to, and I think Liam had mentioned earlier, we need to return to our values, our Judeo-Christian values. And I say that kind of like, honestly, and I know I grew up Christian and I went away from the church, but I made this video a while back called Widening Our Circles, where it's like this, like, you start here in your center circle as a Christian, as a whatever, right? You reject it. You go way out, way far. And then all of a sudden you come gleaming back. So now what you have is, you're not bound to the center, to that circle. You now have freedom to go out, right? And to bring something back to the main thing, like Christianity or your race, being Black, being white. You have something else to bring to the table, because things are not as clear-cut black and white as we make them seem. Like, people think going to church is like sitting inside of a building, like singing a few songs and, like, hearing a message. It's like, no, we're having church right now. This is the fellowship of the brethren right here.
When two or more are gathered.
Where two or more are gathered. Like, what happened to that? Like, there's all of these truths that we're missing. And I feel like right now what we're seeing with the Black Lives Matter is just an angry mob. It's a monster. Like the left has literally created a monster, like a Medusa. It's just the snake with heads. And I bring up snake too, because I want to touch on that. And I'm going to tell that story real quick, because this is something that Marquise and I talked about. And he's really inspired by my story about the snake. Well, snakes have constantly been symbolic in our history and in humanity, right? I mean, even in the Garden of Eden, how snake became with a snake, but that's a whole different story, okay? So I was at a music studio a few weeks ago, and I went out into the backyard, and the producer's girlfriend comes in, she's like, oh my God, there's a snake outside. Now, I saw my friend Daniel Root catch wild animals with his bare hands, like possums, ducks, birds, snakes. I've seen them do it, right? So I'm like, oh, I can do this. I'm feeling all fired up. You know what I mean? I got my so I go up to the snake, this gardener snake, and I go up and I grab for its head, but I didn't quite commit all the way. As I'm pulling my hand back, it bites me in the finger. And I was pretty shooken up. And then my music producer grabs a shovel. He's like, man, I'm tired of this fucker eating my koi fish. Goes and just smacks the head right off. And we're all like, no, don't kill the snake. We don't want to kill it, of course. But he hits and automatically I knew this is symbolic. Because there are snakes out there. There are snakes in the church. There's in the world. And be friends with a snake. Snakes are not pets. We've been domesticated, but snakes at the end of the day, when we were tree people, you didn't just want to kill the snake. You wanted to go back and find the den that the snakes were in and kill all the snakes because that was a major predator, a major threat. And so what you see here is this reptilian monster and what are reptiles, their nervous system is predicated on fear, right? We have that in our human
we got a reptile brain. Yep.
Our reptilian brain, which functions our nervous system to help us survive, but it's churned off of fear. And that's part of the reason why with the quarantine and the coronavirus, why do you think all the toilet paper went out the window? Why do you think people? Because it scared the shit out of people. Literally, it scared the shit out of them. So they need the toilet paper because that's the chakra that they're living in. That's the first thing it's fear, right? Your sacral chakra, your root chakra, right? This is triggering the fear in people.
Yeah.
And this movement is preying on people's fear that what is the fear that this movement is bringing up in people? That's a good question. I'm asking that open-endedly because
it's power. And it's power dynamic, the fear coming from oppressor versus oppressed. And then it's a power shift. We gather in masses, and then it's a shift of power. And the only way it seems like to do that is through fear. It's through that reptilian sense that you're talking about, that lower sacral or root chakra that brings that out. Yeah, man. Trying to think where we can take this.
Take this in a good way.
And shift it over to, because if we just talk about the negatives, which it's very easy to do, whether it's BLM or just society as a whole, and we never get to the solution. So I think what we want to turn this into is how we can come together. And I think what we're titling this is kind of actually what your last video is, which is, I think the answer is love.
Love is the answer.
Love is the answer. Yeah. So, and I really think that is what it is. We had a podcast with another Mike a couple or 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about, because he's a conservative, works within the Republican Party, and so we wanted to have him on and just kind of how can we bridge the gap between, because I consider myself center right, Marquise is a little center left, but I have liberal values here and there, and I have more conservative values here. But he's libertarian conservative. And so we wanted to see how we could bridge the gap and go into conversations without thinking all Republicans are racists. And really he's going into the conversation from a place of love and looking to make a friend rather than looking to be right. And I think we constantly go into conversations looking to be right and or prove to you that something that you need to hear that I know that I can teach you.
Right.
And that's when you come from a place of ego, we can't come to a common ground.
Yeah.
Because then I get defensive. You come from a place of ego, I'm like, oh, hold on, I got to come from a place of ego too.
Yeah.
Because it's about match at this point.
It is, and I feel like social media is part of what's fueling all this. We go on YouTube and we see like liberal destroyed so and so. Like, it's not about destroying each other. Why do we use this language? Like the objective is not to destroy, and like that's what part of my post was about. Was like, hey, my original Black Lives Matter post was like, hey, look, I'm gonna share my perspective here. Let's not destroy each other. Let's not fight with each other. Like let's talk to each other, right? Like, let's have a conversation. And like you said before, like, why on earth? Like, part of this is about like returning to the ability to have a conversation with somebody that may have a different perspective than you, and being okay with that different perspective and embracing it for what it is, and maybe learning something from it. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, exactly. And I think that when we talk about BLM, it's still there's still a lot of fire in people right now. There's a lot of emotion. And we're not coming from a place of logic, which is why I talked about last week. That's why we immediately go to control, alt, delete police, defund police, without really thinking of the repercussions or what that even means or how to even do that. It's just like we go to the full extreme. So I think what we need to do in all senses, whether it's political or religious, how we view the world and other people, is we got to take a step back and take a deep breath, come from a place of logic, rather than immediately going to what you were saying, that reptilian brain, which is instinctual, which is immediately, it's a fight or flight. It's react. It's boom, boom. How can I survive? Rather than how can we come to a common ground and create solutions.
Yeah.
That Black Lives Matter video that you posted on Instagram, and it got so much backlash. I think I saw like 170 comments or something, just like comments embedded inside of comments. Like, it's a lot of, the consensus seemed to be either like people love you and understand that you're just coming from a place of love, and like the student is challenging a narrative, and he's trying to learn. He's, all these beautiful things about you, whether you're right or wrong. I think to your point, and to all of our points of just having conversation, is I'm not trying to be right. I'm just telling you what I think about this situation. And if you, if you want to say something, if you want to have a conversation with me and like come to solutions, which I would love to get to in this conversation, then that's where it's at. But on the other side, the consensus seemed to be, Mike, you're such a disappointment. Like, I'm so sad for you. And I read a lot about privilege, and you and I share a very similar Black experience. So many of the phrases that you said, like, I've literally had to work through these same things. I'm not enough. I'm not Black enough. And how has that been, processing that? You because you seem to be just very grounded and sticking to your guns of being like, look, I'm just here to have a conversation. You didn't backlash on anybody. If someone said they were going to block you, you're like, great, peace and love, see you later. So, how has that been, processing that? Because I know it could be a lot to not be able to.
Yeah, it was hard for me. Like, I don't like confrontation. Like, I don't like conflict. Like, I don't like any of that. So it was really hard for me. But if anything, for me, like, at the end of the day, I'm proud of who I am, and I'm secure in myself enough to be okay with people hating me for who I am. I would rather people hate me for who I am than love me for who I'm not, as kind of a cliche, phrase goes, right? And I may not be accepted by mainstream culture, but I ain't mainstream anyway, right? Like, I may not be accepted but I may not be Black. Well, whatever you're saying Black means, I don't want to be that anyway, right? Like Eminem said, I am whatever you say I am. And so what's for me, it's helped me to have friends and people that have come out of the woodworks and said, you know what, like you, Marquise, you know what I'm saying? Like, you coming out and saying like, hey, I don't care what's going on, what they're saying. Like, I see what you're really trying to do. And I feel like people that see it, they see it and they fuck with it if they see it. But the people that can't see it, they don't have eyes to see it. Like, they literally cannot see it. All they see is you disagree, you're not on the bandwagon, you're not on our car, we're kicking you out, you're evil, you're bad.
You know what's dope about that? That is okay. You know,
Right.
like, I welcome that. And I welcome, just to your point about like coming back to center, like you have both said this already, and I think this is where the magic at is in life. It's understanding where you come from.
Yeah.
Going out there and acculturating is a word, but like educating yourself on other cultures, learn some new languages, live in a new place, get out of your neighborhood.
Yeah.
I think it's the biggest thing.
Yeah, that is huge. That is huge.
For me, it comes down to education. And so if we are only invested and surrounded by what we are comfortable in and what we grew up in, then that's all we're ever going to see. If I grow up thinking everyone is racist, you know, I was sort of taught this lesson, like, look out for cops.
Same.
But the lesson for me there was, my mom said, look out for cops and don't be having your hands in your pockets because you are Black and you are looked at differently, right? I received this little seed. Yeah. But to me, that just meant I just need to be a good person. It didn't mean as a Black man, you know, I need to somehow be different. I don't know. It's just like the essence of it is do good, do right. Yeah. You know? So if we just educate ourselves, get ourselves out of our bubble, which some of the people said that's what you need to do in the comments. You know, they're like, you need to talk to more Black people. And I find that problematic because just as I just welcomed their sort of canceling of you or I or Liam or anybody who speaks against this movement, I welcome that cancellation because now I know that I really don't want to be a part of that. I wish they would just welcome our perspective that, well, maybe you just haven't educated yourself enough outside of this thought process, outside of this narrative, or even thought of solutions beyond it, which I think is most important. What are we actually going to do about this?
Yes, right. Which is part of what my post was about. It's like, go protest. That's fine. Post something about Black Lives Matter on your Instagram. Well, what the fuck you gonna do about this problem?
And then what I keep saying to Liam too is if what we're saying as Black men, or even Liam as a white man, if what we are all saying is not right, then what is it you want me to say? Tell me what you want me to say, you know, and I'll mull on it and I'll think about it. But ultimately, I'm already saying what I think what needs to be said.
Yeah.
It just seems to be that, just like my experience growing up Black and yours as well. It's like, because I skateboard or hike or enjoy camping, you know, I like these white people things. Because of that, for some reason, I'm not Black enough. But to me, that's ignorant, you know?
Ignorant.
You can't say I don't like camping if you've never even given it a shot, is kind of what I'm going for here. So
isn't that tribalism? Mm-hmm. It's like, you know, there's the tribe, you do what the tribe does. And if you don't, then you're not a part of the tribe anymore. Yeah, it's tribalism, and it's a new age religion, whether it's leftism or where BLM is where its route is going. I think we just talked about this right before actually we went on, is that we've replaced Judeo-Christian God like values. We have the death of God, and then we have to replace, if we don't have that anymore, we have to replace it with something. So we find something virtuous. And we find something that, you know, we implant a new moral code, and try and go, like you were saying, that we got the inner circle and you go out the inner circle, or you got that inner thing and we go out. What we're doing is we're out. We're not willing to come back in. We're outside and we're trying to create our own moral code. We're trying to create our own religion, which is called leftism with a hint of Marxism. And
really,
or the essence, it's Marxism, and we call it leftism. Yeah. My points that because it's a religion, it's this dichotomy of good and evil. You know, if you're on my side, then you're virtuous, you're good. If you're on the other side, and you don't display my tribalistic value system that I created or we created, then you are the enemy. You are of the opposite tribe, and we have labels for the opposite tribe. And then we can't have a common ground, and then we can't have a conversation. Right. So I think what we're trying to do here is create that common ground, that we're all individuals, that we're judging each other by our character, and that not by like these immutable characteristics, like the color of my skin that I wasn't able to choose. And we're actually having a rational, logical conversation on actual solutions, like, which is a lot of the times just conversation, talking about it.
Right.
I think, again, to your point, Mike, or at least this is my view on Black Lives Matter. So I want to say it for anyone who needs to hear this. I agree with the essence of Black Lives Matters, right?
Right.
And like, yes, absolutely, yes. And the essence of your message is, the answer is love. You know, it is. It's all these other things that are happening out in the world. It's the police. There's so many issues. Yes. And how can we actually come to solutions? It's by coming into a conversation with love, seeking a friend, and not trying to shut the other person down because they are displaying some morally gray characteristics rather than black or white. The gray, I think, Liam, you and I discovered this a few years ago. Like, the gray is actually where it's at. You know? Like,
right.
The earth is literally polarized, you know? So that's just a reflection of nature that we need.
Yeah.
So I think anyone who has a differing opinion, like, I love it, because that's the only way I'm going to find my own compass, my own way.
Right. You need two poles in order to have a compass.
So if the goal here, let's get to solutions in a moment, gentlemen, but if the goal here is to cancel people who don't agree, that sounds like a really lame world to live in. It sounds like a very just lackluster world, because if everyone around you is agreeing with you, how are we ever going to evolve?
Right.
So I am curious. Feel free, both of you, to speak on anything I just said, but what are some solutions that you think, like, let's say we get, here's one solution, maybe we go from here. Let's say we get a bunch of people, black, white, Asian, Mexican, whatever they're going to be, and they come to, mostly black, let's say that, mostly black, and it could be, 25% of us are people who have this, like, black privilege, right? And then the other is this other who feels just, like, very oppressed, we really actually come together and we have this conversation. There's a solution, and maybe you guys have others, but, like, what else do you see that we can do to help push it forward?
It's education, like you talk about. It always comes back to me. I'll talk about Kanye here for a second. The media does not like Kanye because he speaks out against the Democratic Party. But if you listen to what he says, it's, hey, think critically. Yeah. You don't, just because you're black or gay or trans or not, white Republican from like the South, you don't have to vote Democrat. You can choose. You have a choice. And the way to realize you have that choice is by thinking critically. So I think that it's that teaching in schools, because I think really we've gone so liberal in our education.
Oh yeah.
That we're teaching children from a young age false history, and we're teaching them to view the immutable characteristics, and that's the only thing that matters. And we're not teaching kids to think critically, to engage in tough conversations. We're actually teaching them, like, you can't have these conversations.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's really education. So a solution, really, it's like, hey, maybe what we need to do is create an organization that goes, whether it's summer camps or we go into schools or whatever, but we teach kids and adults, why not, how to critically think, even honestly, like what, the Constitution, which is a living, breathing document, which we amend, and not who wrote that, even though it's important, but like, what does it say, and what does it mean for human beings that we are endowed by our Creator with inalienable rights, and that it's not given to us by government, it's not given us by a Republican or a Democrat party, but it's given to us by our Creator. That's my solution.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting how it's like everything in our society is backwards. It's like the hospitals make us sicker, like the dentists drill holes in our teeth, the educational systems brainwash us. And I think the main thing we have to, I don't care what race you are, but like Marquise, to get back to the heart of your question, like, if we're going to talk about solutions for like the Black community, I think at the end of the day, it's understanding. We have to, and that goes right in line, Liam, with what you're saying about critical thinking. We need to seek understanding. We need to understand, because a lot of times we just go, oh, flu shot? Cool, I'll take it. Like, oh, Black Lives Matter? Sounds good. I'm on board with it. Like, mask on my face? Cool, I'm good. Yeah, let's do that. But like, no, we need to understand deeper what's going on. And I feel like at the end of the day, not just understand, but once you understand, you have to share your understanding, right? Like Marquise was saying before, this is a solution right here. We are working through solutions. We're saving the world right now, essentially. And this is through understanding, because when we seek to not be right, we were talking about this. We're not seeking to be right. We're not seeking to destroy somebody in an argument. We're not seeking power, but we're seeking knowledge. We're seeking understanding. It allows us, it opens us up to the truth. If we just want to understand, that is where I think we can start to, because you can't even debate somebody without understanding their perspective. You can't work on a car without understanding how it works. You can't, like, to me, that is the main thing in which we need to work through, is also understanding who we are as individuals. Like, okay, you think that, but like, let's talk about this. Like, so you're so angry. Like, let's talk about why you're so, like, let's get to the root of the issue. And I think the root of the issue here is that it's just like what you're saying before, it's ego, right? We can't get out of our own way. If only we could just get out of our own way, we could start to see things change. And I think we can. And so part of the understanding, right, is realizing that the youth are the future of this world and of this nation. So we need to make an impact in the lives of young people, right? We need to, we understand that education and knowledge is important. So we need to work on educating and sharing, knowledge, critical thinking skills with people and with the Black community. And I think that's part of it.
Yeah. Education. I think we've all said it. Understanding, education, and a willingness to see the other side. And it's like you said, it's not Ben Shapiro style. Ben Shapiro destroys the leftist on whatever. It's like, that's the right plays the same game as the left.
Right. Exactly right. They do. They play the same game.
And it's annoying as hell. And then all of a sudden, like, I even see like the right, you got a Black Democrat. And then they just like, hey, listen to him because we're not racist. He's Black, and so it's like, and then the left is does the same thing, but in a different way. It's like this, it's tribalism.
It is.
And if we get back to that understanding, that critical thinking, and looking to make a friend, looking to seek love in a relationship, then that is really what matters.
I think you said it. Love. My mom went out on on the street with a sign. It said, "Racism is wrong. All lives matter. Love is the answer." And there was a girl out by her vehicle, and she was like mean mugging my mom. Said something to my mom. My mom goes, the girl goes, "I don't like your sign." My mom goes, "Well, why don't you like my sign?" She says, the girl responds, "Well, because we need justice and we need equality and we need rights and we need them now." And my mom looks at her and goes, "But baby, love is the answer." And we've already touched on what I think we can all agree is really the problem here, which is fear. They're preying on our fear. And the only way to overcome fear is through love. And so if we can just learn to love each other, to let the seed of love and actually learn to love each other, right? Like, it's not just as easy as loving, but loving each other means forgiving ourselves, accepting ourselves, forgiving and accepting each other for who we are, right? Like, you would never, if you love somebody, if you really love them, you would never do anything to hurt them. You would say to them things that are hard for them to hear, right? And the truth may hurt, but the truth may hurt only to set you free. It may tighten the shackles just to put the key in so that they can be free. And I think that's what we're missing. We're really missing love as our core value, as our core, the root of why we're doing this. Like, why do you do what you do? Like, we must learn to start walking in love. That means when you walk in love, that means everywhere you go and everything you do is love. Like cooking your food, like meeting a stranger. It doesn't matter, right? Like, love is the answer. Love is the key. And so, because with that at the helm, everything is possible, right? Everything is possible if love is at the helm, because love gives us the space. It gives us the space to be who we are all really meant to be, which is divine beings bringing down heaven to earth, right?
And driving out that fear, because perfect love drives out fear.
That's it.
That's where, once again, the Bible comes back in. Scripture comes back in.
Unity, right? If we're all loving each other, where there is a spirit of love, there's a spirit of unity. Like, you can't hate, you can be divisive against somebody out of love because, you know, say for instance, they're abusive. Like, you love yourself enough because so you have to get away from them. But I'm talking about like in an ideal world. Like, I'm getting a little idealistic here, right? Like, you know, there's unity and we can all sing. Like, I don't care who you are. I want to sit in a circle with you and sing motherfucking Kumbaya. I just want to sing and dance and drum and hug each other and eat some good food. Like, but people don't want to do that because of these blockades in the way, mainly that of fear. But I think that if we just keep doing our part, if we just keep doing the best we can to make the world better, speaking, saying the things we know we need to say, doing the things we know we need to do, you know, maybe we're just a sprinkle of water, maybe we're just a drop of rain in the Amazon rainforest.
But it's infectious.
It is. And who knows what, by us being brave and speaking our minds and sharing our truth and our understanding, what it could do in the long run in the world. We don't know. And we keep on fighting. We are warriors of love, right? And we just keep on fighting this fight that we're fighting, which is one of love and of truth and of understanding, of knowledge, of education. And who knows? The world may be better because of it. And I surely hope so. And I sure we hope so.
Yeah, man. You know, I hope that you speak such truth and you have a lot of wisdom. And I hope that people can get over their ego and speak to you, you know, as the person you are and understand your thoughts, because I think that social media does, you know, it does a disservice to us because we just see this like just a face and sometimes a little two-dimensional video or whatever, but we don't get to see who we really are. And so you know what I'm saying? It's I hope that people can sit down with you. Maybe even this podcast inspires somebody to be like, oh, okay, you know, I thought that one thing about what Mike said, but I can see that perspective now, and I want to have a conversation with him and just, you know, see where he's coming from. Maybe we can soften some hearts and change some minds.
Yeah, I feel like at the end of the day, we all want the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like at its core, I think we all want the same thing. You know,
I think we just disagree on how to get there. You know, and what to tackle first. I think a big issue, you know, is mental health. I think it's you know, I like to think about it this way. It's no coincidence. So to the point of like systemic racism, right? It's no mistake. It's no coincidence that there are like McDonald's or no McDonald's. Excuse me. There's no mistake that there's no McDonald's in Beverly Hills, or those kind of fast food restaurants, right? It's all high end, luxury food and all the items. And at the same time, within that, let's say systemic racism, we have a choice that we can make. We can drive a couple more blocks or take the bus over to Trader Joe's, perhaps, you know, and like get a nice good meal. Everything in there costs like $3 to $6, you know, like I get out of there with so much good stuff. And so there's only up to a certain point where you can keep blaming the system for a choice that you keep making because our mental isn't right. And it's not just Black people, it's everybody.
Yeah.
So to beyond the root of systemic racism, I think is mental health.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I think we're prisoners of our mind in a lot of cases, you know, and like you're saying, like with the food, like food affects the chemicals in our brain and our gut and our biome. And I feel like the powers that are out there running society know this. Like they know we have an addiction to social media. They know we have an addiction to fast food. They know that we have an addiction to, you know, like they know these things that are going to keep us like from seeing the truth. They keep us dumbed down. They keep us just drunk and high and obese and like, you know, and a lot of that has to do with freeing our mind and having a healthy mind, right? Like without a healthy mind, like you cannot be a healthy person. You just can't. And so, yeah, I think you're right, Mark. A lot of it does have to do with our mental health.
Red pill or blue pill?
I'll take both and see what happens.
Yeah, right. Man, guys, I would love to continue this conversation again. Maybe we can have you on another podcast, Mike.
Yeah.
This was a joy, and it's refreshing. And I hope we can be a good example of what, you know, good, positive, logical, rational conversation looks like, even with some tough subjects, with some scary subjects that almost force that fear out. And it's like, I don't want to get canceled. I don't want to make people mad. I don't want that conflict. But sometimes it's necessary, because you know, if we don't stand up, who will?
Come on.
You know, so we gotta stand up.
Yeah.
And but yeah, no, I would love to continue this conversation again. How can we listen to your music, and how can people talk to you? What's your IG handles, or you have a website, anything like that?
Yeah, I'm Mike Mitch Creative. Find me on Instagram at Mike Mitch Creative. My website, Mike Mitch Creative. Send me an email at Mike Mitch Creative. Get in touch with me. That's that way. And on YouTube, I'm also Mike Mitch Creative. Bada bing, bada boom, bada bam. I want to thank you guys for having me. Mark, you're freaking awesome, man. I've always loved having conversations with you, and I've always heard wonderful things about Liam. And so I'm super happy to hop on here with you guys and And it's like you said, it's refreshing. It really is refreshing to know that, you know, that I'm not in this alone. And I think that's part of the beauty of speaking up. Like, I'm not just doing this, like, we're not just speaking up because we want to, like, put a middle finger up to all the motherfuckers we disagree with. Like, we're doing this because, like, iron sharpens iron. Like, we're building each other up through this. And I think I really want to thank you guys for doing what you do and having me on today as well.
Absolutely, man.
Awesome. And with that, guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the like button, the subscribe button, let us know what you think. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, still give us a subscribe. Also give us a 5-star review if you like this content, and let us know what you think as well. And we will catch you on another episode of Wild next week, Wednesday at 7 p.m. Thanks for watching.